So happy to have you here with us. Today, we are inaugurating a workshop series that will allow you to deploy and work with AWS resources along with guidance from our wonderful presenters. I will stress that today this is a hands-on workshop. We have a link for you that has the lab guide. We're all going to work through that together. I'll work through it on the screen, and hopefully you all will work with it on your own laptops. And we're going to go for it today. I will mention that we have a hashtag AWS Workshop. As we work through the workshop, please feel free to share on social media. Let friends and everyone else know that we're doing this together today. So a bit of a timeline here. We are going to have a pretty short introduction. We're really going to focus on doing the actual work of the lab. We had sent out in the prerequisites that you should create an Elasticsearch service domain. In fact, we are going to provide we have provided a CloudFormation template to deploy the contents of the lab. So in a moment, we're going to turn to CloudFormation and run that template, but that's going to deploy your stack. And while that stack deploys, there's going to be about a 10 or 15 minute period. During that time, we'll have a set of slides and we'll talk over what's going on. We'll return to the lab guide and make some changes to our Elasticsearch service domain to allow Cognito access control for Cabana. That's going to take another few minutes to deploy, about 10 or 15 minutes. So then we'll have a second discussion and return to the lab guide where we'll build some Cabana visualizations over our CloudTrail data. At any time, if you run into difficulties, please put questions into the Q&A pod. We have a number of moderators online that are experienced AWS folks that can help out if you get into any difficulties. So without further ado, let's go ahead, and if you have not already, please download the lab guide from the supplied link. You can see that in the top left of your screen. Click on that and you will have a download that will open. Hopefully the lab guide is there for you. We'll work through step number 11 in this portion of the lab guide. And then I'd ask you, we're going to put up a poll. I'd ask you please to say yes when your CloudFormation stack has completed deploying. So I'm going to turn to that right now. I have my lab guide here. Hopefully you're seeing something similar. We have a bunch of introductory material in the front. We can skip right down to the end of page 4. And you'll see this is the start of the lab steps. And the first thing we need to do is to sign in to the AWS console. So I'm going to go to a browser. I have Chrome open here. And you can put in the URL aws.amazon.com/console. That will bring you to our console. Once you're there, select Sign in to the console. Enter your email and password, or if you're using an IAM user, enter your account ID and password. I'm going to put my password in. And I'll come to my console. Now here we want to go to CloudFormation, and we're going to deploy the stack from there. So the lab guide includes steps on how to do this, but I'll just do it here in the console myself. I'm going to type CloudFormation into the search box, and then I'm going to click CloudFormation here, and that will open the CloudFormation console. You can see I have a stack in there. Oh, sorry. Very important, forgot, you want to be in US East, Northern Virginia. So let me just switch my region to that. Okay. You can see I've already actually deployed the stack, so I'm going to deploy it a second time. Here, I want to create a stack. If you do not have any CloudFormation stacks deployed, you'll have a different screen. Your button will say Create Stack. So create a new stack. So I'm going to create a stack here. And in my choices, I'm going to choose to specify an Amazon S3 template URL. That's the last button here. I'm going to go back to my lab guide, and you'll see in step 5, I have a link, an S3 link for the CloudFormation template. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to paste that into here. So folks, if you are having difficulties or don't have the lab guide, you can come back to your main screen and you'll see in the top left corner, there's a window that has Log Analytics and Cabana Lab Guide, and there's a link that says Log Analytics and Cabana Lab Guide. If you click that link, you will be able to download the lab guide. Thank you. We've created a green arrow for you. So this, you can use that to get the lab guide. I think maybe I might be going a little bit too fast. So I'm just going to wait for a couple of seconds here. Hopefully everybody can kind of come more or less together. One of the fun things about giving a webinar that's a hands-on workshop is it's very hard to get everybody sort of synchronized and doing stuff together. So I don't want to delay too much, and I also want to make sure that everybody has a chance to do the actions that we want to do. So I'll just wait just a second, and then I'm going to return here to CloudFormation. And in CloudFormation, I have pasted my URL for the CloudFormation stack, and I'm going to go ahead and click Next. For this particular stack, we have a couple of parameters that we'd like you to set. The first of those comes from CloudFormation. Every stack needs to have a stack name. Name it something descriptive, something like CloudTrail. I already used this one, but let's do Amazon ES, and we'll use number 2. You can name it CloudTrail to Amazon ES. Anything descriptive that when you come back to CloudFormation, you'll be able to look at that and understand what that stack is. We have an ES version selector. For the present, please keep this at ES version 6.3. We also have a stack prefix. The stack prefix should be a short string that will be prepended to all of the resources that the CloudFormation stack deploys for you. I'm seeing that possibly some folks are having trouble with the link. We'll see if we can. We'll see what we can do about that. I don't have a different link. Perhaps one of my moderators can go quick look behind that link and provide a link for that. So for my stack prefix, again, it's a short string, and I'm going to use CT AMES, CloudTrail to Amazon ES, and I'm going to click Next. We have a number of options on this screen. All of these options are fine at their default. You don't have to change anything on this screen. Simply scroll down and select Next. This screen is a review screen. This tells me what's the template, gives me the stack name, gives me my version and prefix, some options. Very important, you must click the checkbox here. I acknowledge that AWS CloudFormation might create IAM resources with custom names. So click that checkbox. And then I'm going to click Create to create my stack. You can see that on the CloudFormation console, I have create in progress. So CloudFormation is now deploying my stack. If I scroll down here, I actually have a set of events that are going on, and you'll see that CloudFormation is actually creating a number of different resources that will be used for the lab. Okay, so I'm going to come back to the presentation, and can we get that poll up? There it is. Yes, so no need to vote no here. Please just vote yes when your CloudFormation stack has completed deploying. This will help me understand where people are and hopefully give me a gauge on when to move forward. So while that goes on, and that's going to take a little bit of time, that's going to take about 15 minutes to deploy, we're going to talk about the lab and what it is that we are accomplishing. So this lab really is about flowing CloudTrail log data to Amazon Elasticsearch service for analysis and monitoring and ability to dig into that data. I find that some customers, many customers, are not actually familiar with AWS CloudTrail. AWS CloudTrail is a service that receives logs from other AWS services. So it can be from EC2, it can be from Amazon Elasticsearch service, it can be from CloudFormation, and there are different kinds of events that get logged into CloudTrail. Number one thing that gets logged in there is management events. So CloudTrail holds for you a record of the events that have happened in your AWS account, the resources that have been deployed, the changes that have been made to them, and it includes a who, what, when, and what service at minimum that allows you to look at, who is doing what to your resources. And that information is really critical for governance, for compliance, for audit, and even in some cases, you can use that information for DevOps. So really to understand what's happening with your AWS resources. Another thing that's logged is errors for these API calls. Errors tremendously useful to dig the errors out of there and figure out where you're going wrong with your AWS resource and API calls. There's a challenge, though. CloudTrail sends data to CloudWatch or to S3. The format of that data is log lines, right? So this is a ton of JSON that's sitting there. And the information that's important to you is buried in that JSON somewhere. So, logs are ubiquitous. There are tons of them. And the information, the signal to noise ratio is low in those logs. So how can you pull that information out? How can you get a good view on the really important data that you have in those CloudTrail logs? Well, Elasticsearch is an open source technology, been out for a number of years, that allows you to bring log data in, and then along with Cabana, which is an open source thin web client, provides search and visualization over that data. So with Elasticsearch service, backing the data out of CloudTrail into Elasticsearch service allows you to pull that signal out of that noise. And how does this work? So with Elasticsearch service, we have a lot of customers. We fundamentally have two different kinds of workloads that we run. The first of those is this logging use case that we're exploring today. Elasticsearch service is also a search engine, so it does support application search over application data. We send that data to Elasticsearch, and there's a number of different patterns and formats and ways that we get that done. It goes into Elasticsearch service domain. Elasticsearch then creates indexes on the fields and data that you have and sent in there. And then on the front end, you either have your application, you have your DevOps folks, you have your audit and compliance folks able to query that data and bring out the information. Now, how to get data into Elasticsearch service, as I mentioned, there are a number of different patterns. Amazon CloudWatch Logs is a service that's a metrics and monitoring service. So CloudWatch Logs really fundamentally is about storing metrics from your applications, about alarming and working with that metric information. At the same time, there's a service, CloudWatch Logs, a portion of the CloudWatch service that takes in log data. And it has some fundamental search capabilities. It has some dashboarding capabilities. It also has the ability to deliver that log data directly, to stream that data to a couple of different destinations. With CloudWatch Logs, you use a subscription to stream your data from CloudWatch Logs to a number of different destinations. The important destination for today is Amazon Elasticsearch service. So CloudTrail can deliver data to CloudWatch Logs. CloudWatch Logs then can stream that data to Amazon Elasticsearch service. That gives you a very easy way to get your data from CloudTrail into Elasticsearch service and then do the work that you want to do with it. With CloudWatch Logs subscriptions, you can also more broadly, we won't use it here, but you can more broadly provide a filter that allows you to look at the information that's in the log stream, filter in or out different terms, and potentially build metrics out of what's in your log files with metric filters. This is a way that allows you to shape and format the data that's coming across to Amazon Elasticsearch service. Very importantly, CloudWatch, when you subscribe a CloudWatch log group to your Elasticsearch service domain, CloudWatch creates a Lambda function in your account. So as a general, that performs the actual streaming. So as a general rule and a general pattern, it's possible for you to intervene and modify that Lambda function to enrich your data with more metadata, to, again, shape or drop certain records if they're not interesting, drop certain fields if they're not interesting. But it's important. I wanted you to know that this is all supported, this connection is supported through Lambda, and that Lambda function is in your account for you to modify and change as you want. Ultimately, what we're really looking at is, this is an example of CloudTrail. This is the kind of data that has this is the noise, right? This has the information that you want in it somewhere, right? And really what we're building today and what we're going to show you is you can take this and change it into something like this, which is a much more consumable form of information. So this is a Cabana dashboard that I've built that's showing me a regional call graph that's showing where are my calls coming from. I have a number of events that are coming in. I have an event count here, and then I also have an error count, so I can monitor across this time period what errors am I getting. I have a pie chart that's showing me the regional breakdown of my calls down to which services I called and which accounts made those calls. I have a couple of horizontal bar charts here. This is showing me a breakdown of the services I'm using. These are the calls that I've made, and these are the types of calls I'm making. So there are API calls, and there's also console sign-in shows up for me here. So this is the kind of information you can pull out of CloudTrail data, and we're going to, as we go through the lab, we're going to build a portion of this particular dashboard. So let me check in with everybody. So it looks like we have about 70% of everybody has said that their stack has finished deploying. Let me take a quick look at my stack. 33 more events. Okay, at the moment, I am not yet complete. So, and this is the challenge of doing this live. So I do have some additional material that we can talk through, and perhaps we'll do that. And I'll come back to this slide in a minute when my stack is completed deploying. So I wanted to talk about CloudFormation, because CloudFormation is a tremendous, tremendous tool. Part of the AWS story and part of the power of AWS is to codify your infrastructure and turn it into repeatable deployment through either code or through templates, as we're doing with CloudFormation. And there are a number of other products out there that allow you to descriptively create your infrastructure and resources rather than doing it manually or with a script itself, right? So CloudFormation is an AWS service that allows you to build a template that will deploy your infrastructure for you. You know, what we're going to build here and what the CloudFormation template is doing right now is deploying a number of different services. So we have a CloudTrail trail that's getting deployed. That is sending data to Amazon S3, those log lines. It's also sending data to Amazon CloudWatch. CloudWatch then, as I said, creates that Lambda function for you. And CloudFormation is creating an Elasticsearch service domain. It's creating Cognito resources that allow you to sign into Cabana. And it's putting all of that together and wiring it for you. So we're going to look at a couple of pieces of the CloudFormation template that I thought would be interesting. Again, CloudFormation provides you the ability to deploy infrastructure as code. So with CloudFormation, we have a number of different portions of a CloudFormation template. And I encourage you all, by the way, to download and use or reuse the CloudFormation template that's provided by the lab. You can go to the S3 link directly and just pull down the JSON itself and reuse or use any portion of this to create your own resources, either to duplicate the lab itself or to deploy your own. I'm going to check again. So I have completed my create. I'm going to say before we dive into the CloudFormation pieces, let's all return to the lab guide and take the next steps there. All right, so I'm going to go back to my lab guide. And I'm going to come down here to the Enable Cognito Sign-On for Amazon Elasticsearch Service section. In this section, CloudFormation does not support all of the options that are supported by the various services. So we want to have Cognito sign in to make it easy for us to get into Cabana to do the work of the lab. With the CloudFormation template, we're not actually able to accomplish that. So there are some manual steps that we need to do to connect up Cognito. So the first thing I need to do is go to my Elasticsearch service. And I'm going to go to my console. There's a couple of ways I can get there. I could open a new console window. If I drop down the services menu again, I can type Elasticsearch. And you'll see Elasticsearch service here. I'm going to click on that. And I'll come over here to Elasticsearch service. Now I have two domains here. This is the one I just created. This one I created a couple of days ago. I'm going to click on my domain's name. Find your domain. If you have a number of different Elasticsearch service domains, you find yours here, or you can see my domains are listed over in the left rail over here. So come look for your domain. Then I'm going to click on that, and I'll come to my main dashboard. We won't go into much detail about the dashboard, but you can see there are a number of things I can do here. I can change my access policy. I can do tags. I can delete it. I have some tabs here that allow me to see what's going on with my domain, monitoring. I can set up log delivery to CloudWatch Logs. I can also check out my cluster's health. Mostly what we want to do here is configure our cluster. We're going to add Cognito sign-in. So when I come to my configure domain page, I need to scroll down to the Cabana authentication portion of the page. Here you can see there's a checkbox, enable Amazon Cognito for authentication. I need to check that box. And I get a drop down. It opens up into some further information that I need to supply. So with your CloudFormation stack, you got a Cognito user pool and a Cognito identity pool. we need to select those to tell this Elasticsearch service domain to use those identity pools. I'm going to be careful here to select the one I just created. Don't want the wrong one. So that is my CTAMES user pool. I'm going to select my identity pool. And I'm going to leave everything else the same. So at this point, we're going to change configurations of our Elasticsearch service domain. And that's going to kick off some changes in the background that, again, are going to take about 10 minutes to complete. So once I kick this off, we will go back to the presentation. If we can have the second poll, that'd be great. So again, we're going to put up a poll that would allow you to tell me that your domain has come back to the active state. And I'll show you what that means in just a second. So I've clicked Submit. And you can see in my overview, my domain status is now processing. That processing lets me know that Elasticsearch service is doing work in the background to make my configuration changes and bring that Cognito access control, enable that Cognito access control. So while this is in the processing state, let me quick switch back over here. And I'm going to give you just a minute, 30 seconds or so, to get through those steps in the lab. Actually, were there more lab steps? I may have messed that up. Hang on. Oh, yes, there are more steps. Sorry. So we also want to do the section, start streaming logs from CloudWatch Logs to Amazon ES. Now that we have our domain created, now we can go into our CloudWatch Logs console and enable the connection to send the CloudTrail logs, which are already flowing to CloudWatch Logs, into Elasticsearch service. So let's go ahead and work through these steps. I'm going to go back to my console. And actually, I'm going to open a new tab here. And I just typed console.aws.amazon.com in the URL bar if you want to do that, or you can, again, switch services in the existing tab. So here, what I want to do is to go and type CloudWatch. I'm going to click on that. This is my CloudWatch main console. You can see I have a number of different features that CloudWatch supports. We're interested in the logs feature. So I click on logs. Now, here are all of the log groups that I have. It's a little bit long and confusing. I can use this filter to pull up my particular log group. So I have my CTAMES CloudTrail Logs log group. I want to stream this log group to Amazon Elasticsearch service. So here is a radio button. You want to click the radio button. Don't click on the name of the log group. If you do that, you'll go into the log group and you can't do the streaming from there. So just select the radio button and then drop down the action menu. And on the action menu, you can see I have Stream to Lambda and Stream to Elasticsearch service. We're going to stream to Amazon Elasticsearch service. On this page, we have to tell CloudWatch Logs the Elasticsearch service domain that we want to use. Here again, I have my two domains. I'm going to use the CTAMES domain. And I need to set an execution role for the Lambda to allow it to stream to Elasticsearch service. Now, the lab actually creates for you this IAM role. So you want to look for CTA, this one. This is my CloudWatch Logs role for streaming. I know it's a long list. You may have noticed I typed there. That allowed me to find it more easily. I typed the prefix CTAMES, and then I just scrolled down a couple until I saw CloudWatch Logs role for streaming. So you need to set that and click Next. CloudWatch Logs has some predefined log filters that allow you to stream logs easily from known sources. In particular, VPC flow logs. By the way, VPC flow logs have great information about ingress and egress traffic. If you're looking for alerting or monitoring on denial of service kind of attacks, or if you want to make sure that all of your traffic is coming and going to the right place, VPC flow logs will go directly to CloudWatch Logs. CloudWatch Logs, via this mechanism, can also forward them to Amazon Elasticsearch service. In this case, we're flowing AWS CloudTrail logs, so we'll select that format. Again, as I mentioned, I can add a subscription filter that will help me shape the data that's sent into Elasticsearch service. For this lab, we're not going to put any filtering on it. You can see we already have some events that are coming into CloudWatch Logs from CloudTrail. We don't actually need to do anything here. We can test our filter pattern, but it's an empty filter pattern, so it's not really going to do anything. I can push test there, and I can see it found 50 of 50 matches for my filter subscription. I'm going to click Next. And I have a review page here that lets me know I'm sending it to that particular domain. I have my IAM role. I have my new Lambda function being created. I have my endpoint in there. Everything's ready to go. I click Next. There's a little review page here. We do have some dashboards pre-built for Cabana 3 and 4. Unfortunately, we're up to Cabana 6. We don't have any pre-built dashboards, but good news, in the lab, we're going to build our own dashboard. And you'll see how easy it is. So let's go ahead and start streaming. Okay. If everything has gone well, I should, in a second, this is not in your lab guide, but we'll go ahead and do this step just to show you. Let me update that. Still processing. If I look at my indices here, I should, if that data comes in, I should be able to see my data here. Okay, well, I'm going to back off on that. So let's go ahead and come back to our presentation. All right. So we were discussing the CloudFormation template components. We're going to come and talk through some of the resources that CloudFormation is creating for you. First of those is a CloudWatch destination group. Again, the pattern here you'll see in the template is we have a name. We can refer to this resource inside the template itself, and then we have a type of the resource, and then some properties that are part of that resource and that tell CloudFormation how to deploy that resource. So in particular, you'll see here, and if you're not familiar with CloudFormation, this is a very common thing to have. We have some inbuilt functions in CloudFormation that allow me to pull pieces of the different resources and put them into other resources. In particular, we have a join function that allows me to put together strings, and we have a ref function that pulls a particular resource's one of the attributes of that resource. Depends on the resource what it is. In this case, this is our stack prefix that you typed as a parameter. And so our log group name here is the prefix with CloudTrail logs. So this is the log group that we've created now in the template to receive the data from CloudTrail. Of course, we're going to have a CloudTrail trail. And in here, you can see, number one, there are a couple of different roles that we're using to enable CloudTrail to talk to CloudWatch Logs. There's a lot of cloud going on. And there's some parameters here that we set up. The most important is logging. That tells CloudTrail, yes, turn on the logging. Multi-region allows me to say, is this scope to a particular region, or am I logging resources across all of my AWS regions? And I have an S3 bucket, which is the target for delivery, as well as CloudTrail for this data. The template itself does create that S3 bucket for you, and we're not going to look at that one, but again, I encourage you to download that and see how that happens. The CloudFormation template also creates an Amazon Elasticsearch service domain for you. So here you can see, in particular, we have a domain name, a version. The config tells us some of the parameters that we want to set on this domain. I'm going to tell you the more important thing here is this access policy. So you'll notice that we have here the Cognito role ARN. When you're enabling Elasticsearch service to have Cognito as the login mechanism, this little piece of policy is the key one to have. So you'll see, we'll look at it on the domain itself, but this is the thing. If you're building a CloudFormation template and you want to have Cognito access, make sure to follow through the template how this access policy is created and the pieces of this policy that will enable Cognito to talk to your Elasticsearch service domain. As I said, again, the CloudFormation template does create a couple of user pool and an identity pool. If you're not familiar with Cognito, those are the two components that allow you to, in the user pool, support the login experience, in the identity pool to allow you to either create identities or to bring in identities from your federated identity provider, things like LDAP, et cetera, Okta, Ping, all of those. So we're creating this here, and a couple of important things. We do have to allow unauthenticated identities. And this is so that this Amazon Elasticsearch service can configure Cognito to work with the domain. So the identity pool and user pool are not the only pieces that we need to enable that Cabana login. We need to also create a Cognito domain. A Cognito domain is a domain in the sense of a web domain that allows Cognito to create the login experience. So we have to create that. Again, CloudFormation does not support that directly. And we also have to wire together that domain with the user pool and create our user to log in. So as a more general point, this is a custom Lambda function. You can embed code like this in your CloudFormation templates to do these little operations that need to happen that aren't directly supported by CloudFormation. There's a number of different levels that you can do this at. This could be part of an EC2 instance launch. This could be a Lambda function like this. The Lambda function itself can be inline, or it can be zip and uploaded to S3. A lot of different paths to get to this. The important thing, and again, I would just say, keep this template around. There's this wiring Lambda function. Then there's a separate resource that triggers the Lambda function at the right time. It's important to have both of those pieces. And then by hard experience, I found out it's incredibly important that in all cases, you hit a line that sends back a response to CloudFormation inside your Lambda. So if you look in more detail at the function, you'll see where I ensure that a response goes back to CloudFormation. If not, CloudFormation can get hung and not allow you to continue on. So let's have a look back at our Elasticsearch service domain. Okay, so my domain has gone active. Looks like a bunch of your domains have gone active as well. And at this point, we can return to the lab guide. Actually, what am I going to do? Okay, sorry, I had to pull out a particular slide here. So we can return to the lab guide and we'll complete the sections on logging in, setting up Cabana, on building, on exploring your data, with the Discover pane, visualizing logs with a pie chart and with a call volume by region. We'll add some real-time updating and build a dashboard. The lab guide does include additional steps that you can take to deploy a second CloudFormation stack. That CloudFormation stack includes a Lambda function that generates a bunch of traffic to S3. One of the things that you can also monitor with CloudTrail is what are called data events. For Amazon S3 and for Lambda, you can monitor the invocations of Lambda and also the gets, puts, and deletes of your S3 objects. Those are tremendously useful if, for instance, you're hosting a website via S3, or if you have an S3 bucket that contains information that needs audit, you can see who's accessed that data. So with that Lambda function, you'll generate S3 traffic. You can then, it includes in the lab guide steps to create monitoring over that S3 data. So, but that's optional. Time permitting, if you want to dig into that, or after the broadcast is over, you can dig into that as well and explore that additional functionality. So let me return to my lab guide. I'm going to log in and set up my Cabana login. If I come to my Elasticsearch service dashboard here, you can see I have a Cabana link. So I'm going to click that link, and actually I'm going to right-click that link to put it in a new tab. So Cabana, again, via Cognito, we now have a sign-on panel that's going to let me sign in to Cabana. For username, use Cabana with a lowercase k. I have tried it with an uppercase k and stuff got a little bit weird. So stick with the lowercase k Cabana. And then the password is capital A, lowercase b, c, d, 1, 2, 3, 4, exclamation mark. That's in your lab guide. You'll be able to see it there. So use that to sign in. So with Cognito, you can set up various parameters around your accounts and passwords. And in particular, Cognito, by default, after the first sign-in, asks you to change your password. So in this case, I'm going to put a new password here. And there are some restrictions on this. It needs to have a capital letter, it needs to have numbers, and it needs to have a special symbol. I'm going to go ahead and use capital K, Cabana, 1, 2, 3, exclamation mark. I type that once. I need to type it again. Okay, and I'll send. So this is Cabana's main splash screen here. And we have a number of different panes on the left side. I can dive into any of these. Also a little bit of discussion about what Cabana can do. The first thing I need to do is tell Cabana where to find my data in my Elasticsearch service domain. I do that by clicking on the Management tab. And you can see here I have saved objects, advanced settings, but the one that I want is index patterns. An index pattern tells Cabana that some wildcard name of an index is where to find the data. When we do logging with Amazon Elasticsearch Service, the typical pattern is to use an index for each day's worth of data. This allows me to manage the life cycle of that data in my Elasticsearch Service domain. And usually those index names have a prefix and then a date attached to them. My pattern there is then, of course, the prefix with a wildcard, right? That says the pattern of data that I'm sending is, in this case, CloudWatch Logs --star. That's the Lambda function that CloudWatch generated from you, creates indexes with CWL-date. So I clicked on that index patterns button, and I'm going to tell Cabana that my index pattern is CWL-star. You can see I matched an index, CWL today's date. I'm going to go to the next step. And now I have to tell Cabana where to find my time, the timestamp on my log lines. So Cabana is able to work with data that's time series and display graphs and visualizations with a time-based chart. It's able to narrow within different time ranges, and you're able to use that time field in a number of different ways to scope either your dashboard or the other things. So let's go ahead and set that timestamp. Oh, at timestamp, by the way, is the CloudWatch Logs created time field that you want to use for your index pattern. Right. Success. You can see here that once we told Cabana what the index was, Cabana was able to pull out the schema for that index. We have actually 41 pages here. The CloudTrail log data has a lot of different fields in it. It depends on what the events are. So there's tons of different information in here. Okay, so we've got that all set up. Let's go back to the Discover pane, and let me just make sure I'm doing this in the right order. We are now going to explore our data in the Discover pane. So I'll come back to Cabana. I'm going to go to Discover. So what you can see here, this is sort of Cabana's main entry point. I have a time scope here. As I mentioned, Cabana is able easily to scope down the dashboard to a particular time period. And you can see here, today, this week, this month, this year, there's a number of quick ones. I also can use relative from 15 minutes ago. I have absolute. There's a lot of ways I can work with my data just in terms of setting the time frame where I'm going to be looking at data. We'll leave it at the last 15 minutes. Here are some example log lines. This is example data that Cabana displays for me. You'll see there's a discovery triangle here. If I open that, I can dig into the actual data itself. Here's the original message. I have all of my fields broken out. This is the information that CloudTrail is providing to CloudWatch Logs and then to Elasticsearch service. We have some kind of metadata here that is more general information about that is carried on all of the CloudTrail logs. So I have a region, an event ID, event name, source, time, et cetera, et cetera. Those fields will be on all of your CloudWatch records, user identity as well. Then depending on the event itself, you'll have specific information for that event. What we can do here in this workshop at a high level is really work with the high-level metadata. But as you dig in and dig into your own logs, you'll want to filter down the log data and pick up, say, EC2 events that have their own section of data. You'll be able to pull that out and create dashboards and visualizations based on that as well. So the first thing that we want to do here is explore a little bit how to make this display a little bit easier to use. And in particular, this format is, again, a little bit more like forest than trees. It's a little bit hard to see what's going on. So I have some controls here that allow me per field to alter how I display and what I display. So I'm going to go ahead and click this little book-looking thing to toggle the display into a tabular display. So I'm doing this for the AWS region. I'm going to do it for the event source. I'm going to do it for the event, where is it? Region source, event name. And then I'm also going to pull in the ARN for the user identity of who made this call. So this is useridentity.arn. Okay, I've clicked a bunch of buttons, looked like nothing happened, right? I need to scroll back up to the top here and close my discovery triangle because I'm still viewing a particular record. If I close my discovery triangle, you'll see here I now have a tabular view that makes it easy for me to see what exactly is going on. So actually I'm going to get rid of this ARN. It's kind of cramping the whole thing. That's much better. Okay, so I have my region, source, and event name. Let's say I'm interested in, which ones am I going to look for? Let's look at calls that we made to Elasticsearch service. So that means the event source will be es.amazonaws.com. If I hover over that, you can see I have a plus and a minus with a little magnifying glass. That allows me to filter in or filter out values. So in this case, if I want to see only calls to Elasticsearch service, then I'm going to filter for es.amazonaws.com. You can see again that search has run, and now all of my data is related to Elasticsearch service. If I want to find the call that I made that changed Cognito access control, I can start filtering out the calls that I'm not interested in. So I can say, okay, get rid of list domain names. I'm clicking on the filter out value there. I'm going to get rid of describe Elasticsearch domains, get upgrade status, get upgrade history, compatible Elasticsearch versions. You can see, by the way, as I add these filters, they're up here. And I don't have that call. So, oh yeah, I do. Here it is. So this is my update Elasticsearch domain config. This is the call that I did in the console to enable Cognito. I can expose that one. And you'll see here, as I said, there's much more data in this. When we get down to particular service calls, you'll see that there's a request parameters section for most of them, as well as a response elements section for most of them. And if I open up here, here's my access policy, and where is, here, Cognito enabled, right? So I've now changed Cognito enabled to true. This pane, when you're facing some kind of issue in production and you have 10,000 servers running and you're flowing all your log data into Elasticsearch service and you want to find the particular log line that signals the 503 or what have you, this pane is a really handy way to do it. I think I mentioned in the lab guide too, if we take all of these out, Cabana provides me with a search box. And this is another way for me to dig in on this particular panel. I can here type for, say, es.amazonaws.com, just like I would in any normal search application. Oops. And I'll see here, as soon as it comes back, I have, again, a number of sources that are es.amazonaws.com. I have an assumed role here that presumably has es.amazonaws.com embedded in it, source IP, user agent. So again, this search is more general than filtering a particular field for a particular value, but I can do that as well. All right, let's move on to visualizing our AWS usage. And I'm going to come here to the Visualize tab and click on that. I can see we're low on time. I'm going to go a little bit quicker and try to complete within the hour. Okay, so I'm going to create a visualization. I'm going to select the pie chart. Pie chart is a handy way for me to look at my data in a pie chart. When I do that, I need to tell Cabana the index pattern I want to use. In this case, I'm going to use my CWL-*. Here is a fantastic pie chart. It's a pie chart of everything. Now, I don't actually want a pie chart of everything. I'd like to have it broken out into different things. So I need to select split slices. When I select split slices, I can select an aggregation to work on. And here, I want to scroll my menu down. You'll see I didn't quite get terms on the bottom. So I'm going to select terms. The field I want to do it on, here I drop down and I can type a search term. So let's do AWS region.keyword. I just start typing and here's the field I want. That is enough. I can click this little apply changes button and you'll see here I get a breakdown of the AWS API calls I've made by region. So that's pretty interesting. It'd be more interesting, though, to know what are the calls that I made and who made them. With Cabana, I can nest my aggregations. With Elasticsearch, I can nest my aggregations. So in this case, I'm going to add some sub buckets. I'm going to split my slices. And here again, I'm going to use terms. I'm going to pick the event name .keyword. And I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to add sub buckets again. And I'm going to add another terms aggregation. And this will be on the user identity dot, how about ARM? Okay. So here I have a nice chart, a nice pie chart that tells me within US East 1, I made calls to for get bucket ACL, and this is my account that made those calls. So this is a nice chart. Let's save that. And I give it a name. I clicked save up here at the top of the screen. I'm saving it as pie chart by region. All right. I would continue to show you how to make a dashboard, but we're really running short on time. So let me do this. I encourage you to complete the lab guide out. It'll show you not only this visualization, but also how to build a time series visualization, how to build a dashboard, and how to come back to that. And as well, the optional steps for S3. Let's come back to the presentation and just wrap up really quickly. So we have, again, here's the link for you to download the CloudFormation template. If you go in the lab guide at the bottom does tell you how to clean up your resources. If you've deployed these resources into your account, please be aware this will add some charges to your AWS bill, so you probably want to clean those up. You can download the CloudFormation template here. What we've really done is explore a little bit of CloudTrail. CloudTrail providing you with information about your AWS resource usage. We flowed that data into CloudWatch Logs, and then flowed from CloudWatch Logs. We created a subscription filter that flowed that data into Elasticsearch service. We briefly touched on Cabana. There's plenty more to do with Cabana, and then you can use this pattern in your own accounts for governance, audit, all of those different things. So I hope that this, again, inaugural version of our hands-on workshops was enjoyable. I hope you learned something. I really hope that you got to see Cabana in action enough. But again, encourage you to follow through on that. Thank you again very much for your time and attendance. Really appreciate it.